The coffee shop was packed at 8:47. I was in line behind a woman with a stroller and a man on his phone who kept backing into me. I checked my phone. No messages from Michael. That was fine, he had told me he was heading to the office early. I ordered my usual, a black coffee with 1 sugar, and turned to find a table. That's when I saw him. He was at a corner table by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He was leaning forward, smiling at a woman I had never seen. She had her hands wrapped around a latte, and she was laughing. My phone buzzed. Asterisk swamped with meetings all morning. Can't do lunch. Sorry, asterisk I stared at the screen. Then I looked back at the table. He was holding her hand across the table. I walked to the counter and said to the barista, a kid with a septum ring who had just made my coffee, "Can you take that man his usual, the macchiato with oat milk, and hand him this?" I slid a folded receipt across the counter. The email from his boss was printed on the back. All meetings canceled for the week. That was Tuesday. The rest of the week went by in a kind of fog, the kind where you move through the motions, but your real self is standing at a distance, watching. I went to work. I sorted through boxes of old county records, marking dates, and filing them in acid-free folders. I came home. I made dinner. I asked Michael about his day. He told me about a client who was being difficult and a quarterly report that was due. I nodded. I listened. I watched him eat his pasta and tell me a story about a colleague who had been promoted over someone more deserving. He was so good at it. The ease of him. The way the lies came out smooth and warm as butter. I spent that Wednesday night in the bathroom after he was asleep. I had found a hair on his jacket the night before, when he hung it in the closet. A long blonde strand, curled around the collar like it had been there a while. I am not blonde. I have not been blonde since 2005, when I tried highlights and realized they made me look like I was trying too hard. I pulled the hair off the jacket and held it under the bathroom light. It was not mine. It had never been mine. I flushed it down the toilet and sat on the edge of the tub for a long time, trying to feel something besides the hollow thud in my chest. The coffee shop was still there in my head. The corner table. The way she laughed. The way Michael leaned in like he was listening to something precious. I had watched it like a movie, from outside the frame, and then I had walked out. I paid for her coffee. I don't know why I did that. It wasn't kindness. It was something stranger. It was like I wanted to mark the moment for myself, to say, asterisk I saw this. This happened. I was here, asterisk on Thursday. I found the receipt. I was looking for a pen in the glove compartment of Michael's car, the one he let me drive when mine was in the shop. The car smelled like his cologne and something else, something floral and faint. I found the pen and a crumpled receipt from a restaurant downtown. Luciano's. The date was 3 weeks ago. That was the night he had texted me from the airport bar, a photo of a glass of whiskey, with the caption asterisk delayed again. Kill me now, asterisk I had told him to order a second one and not to worry. I had sent him a heart emoji. I had believed him. I typed the restaurant name into my phone that night while he was in the shower. Luciano's. The reviews were good. The photos were better. I scrolled through the tagged images, the ones where people posted their plates and their dates and their smudged reflections in wine glasses. And there she was. The same woman from the coffee shop. She was in a group shot at a table of 6, raising a glass. Her hair was pulled back and she was wearing a green dress. Michael was sitting next to her. His hand was on the back of her chair. The caption said, "Great night with the crew." The post was 3 weeks old. The location tag said Luciano's. The airport bar was in another state entirely. I took a screenshot. I saved it in a folder on my phone called Documents. Then I deleted the history and sat on the couch and waited for him to finish his shower. He came out in his robe, his hair wet, his face relaxed. He kissed the top of my head and said something about the water pressure being low. I said maybe he should call the plumber. He said he would do it tomorrow. He never called the plumber. Friday was the day I found the credit card statement. Michael had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter when he went out to get the mail. I had seen him check his email 1,000 times. I knew his password from the day he set it up, the one we both used for everything, the anniversary of our first date. He had never changed it. I sat down and opened his browser and looked at the recent history. He had cleared most of it, but he had missed the bank website. I clicked the link and it asked for a second verification code. I didn't have that, but I had the joint account. I logged in under our shared credentials and scrolled through the transactions. There were the payments I knew, the mortgage and the utilities and the grocery trips. There were the ones I didn't. Monthly transfers to an account number I didn't recognize. Small amounts, under $500, spread out across months. The earliest one was from 11 months ago. The most recent was from last week. I added them up in my head. It was over $4,000. For $1,000 I had not known was gone. For $1,000 that had been part of our savings, our buffer, our just in case. I closed the laptop. I went to the window and looked out at the street. There was a woman walking her dog, a golden retriever with a red leash. She was on the phone laughing. I thought about the woman in the coffee shop, the one with the latte and the blonde hair. I thought about her throwing the drink in his face. I thought about the way she had walked out past the filming commuters, her chin up, her steps fast. I had paid for her coffee. I didn't know why, but I knew I would do it again. Michael came back in with the mail. He tossed it on the counter and said something about a bill being late. I turned from the window and looked at him. I looked at his face, the familiar lines around his eyes, the way his hair was graying at the temples. I had kissed those temples 1,000 times. I had believed in them. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing. Just tired." He said, "You should go to bed early." I said, "Yeah, I think I will." That night, I lay in bed next to him and listened to him breathe. His breathing was even and slow, the breathing of a man who had no trouble sleeping. I stared at the ceiling and counted the cracks in the plaster. I thought about the account number I had memorized. I thought about the blonde hair. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the way his thumb had traced circles on the back of her hand, a gesture I knew, a gesture I had mistaken for something that belonged only to me. I thought about how long he had been doing this. 11 months at least. Maybe longer. Maybe all along. Maybe I had been so busy being patient, being steady, being the good wife who didn't complain, that I had stopped paying attention to the cracks. The next morning, I woke up before him. I made coffee. I opened his laptop again. The laptop was still logged in. I opened his email and searched for the restaurant receipt. It wasn't there. He had deleted it. But there was something else. A confirmation email from a real estate agency. A viewing appointment for a property on Maple Street. The date was 4 weeks ago. The address was 20 minutes from our house. I read the email twice. Then I printed it on our home printer, folded it, and put it in my purse. I logged out of his email and cleared the history. I finished my coffee and I waited for him to wake up. He stumbled into the kitchen at 9, rumpled and slow. He said, "Morning." I said, "Morning." He poured himself a cup and sat across from me. I looked at him across the table. The same table we had sat at for 18 years. The same table where we had argued about the budget and celebrated our daughter's acceptance letter and made plans for the future. He looked at his phone and smiled at something. I didn't ask what it was. I said, "Michael, what are we doing?" He looked up, his face confused. "What do you mean?" I said, "Us. What are we doing?" He laughed, short and dismissive. "Elena, it's Saturday. We're having coffee." "What kind of question is that?" I said, "I'm just asking." He said, "You're in a mood." I said, "Maybe I am." He shrugged and went back to his phone. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in the sink. I walked to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat down on the bed and pulled out my phone. I opened the screenshot of the group photo. I looked at her face. Rachel. I remembered now. She had been in my book club 3 years ago, the one I stopped going to because the women were too cliquey and I never finished the reading. She had been quiet, smart, unassuming. She had left the club after a few months. I hadn't thought about her since. I looked at her face in the photo. She was smiling. She looked happy. I wondered if she knew I existed. I wondered if he had told her I was gone, or fading, or irrelevant. I wondered if she had asked, or if she simply hadn't needed to. I set the phone down and put my face in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't feel like crying. I felt like I was on the other side of glass, watching myself sit on the bed, watching my shoulders stay still. I had spent so many years being the one who understood, the one who gave the benefit of the doubt, the one who smoothed things over. I had been so careful not to be the difficult wife. I had been so proud of not being difficult. And here was the result. Here was my reward. He looked up then, scanning the room, and I was already walking toward the door. The door to the bedroom was closed, but it didn't feel like enough. I got up and locked it. I stood there with my hand on the lock and listened. Michael was still in the kitchen. I could hear him moving around, opening cabinets, probably looking for the honey he kept forgetting we had run out of. I pulled out my phone again and opened the folder I had started. Screenshots. Receipts. Dates. I needed a system. I needed to know how deep this went. I started with the credit card statement I had seen on his laptop. I logged into our joint account from my phone and scrolled back a year. I found the transfers. Regular like clockwork. The same amount, $420, every 2 weeks. That was a specific number. Not random. That was someone's rent. Or someone's car payment. Or someone's life. I took a screenshot of each one and saved it in the folder. Then I went to the bank's website and looked up the routing number attached to the transfers. It was a local credit union I had never heard of. I wrote the number down on a scrap of paper I found in my nightstand drawer. I folded it and tucked it into my wallet. The bedroom door was still locked. I heard Michael's footsteps in the hall. He knocked. Elena, you okay in there? I'm fine, I said. Just getting dressed. I'm going to run to the hardware store. Need anything? No. Okay. Be back in an hour. I listened to his footsteps retreat. The front door opened and closed. The lock clicked. I waited a full minute before I got up and walked back to the kitchen. The coffee pot was still half full. I poured myself another cup and sat down at the table. The table was cluttered with mail. Junk mostly. A flyer from the grocery store. A postcard from the dentist. A bill from the cable company. I picked up the cable bill and looked at the address. Our address. The same one we had lived at for 12 years. The same one we had chosen because it had a good school district and a big backyard and enough room for the 3 of us. I had painted the living room myself, a pale blue I had spent hours picking out. I had hung the curtains and planted the rose bushes and made this house something more than a house. I thought about the condo on Maple Street. I thought about the confirmation email I had printed and stuffed in my purse. I pulled it out and unfolded it. The address was 1422 Maple Street, Unit 4B. The viewing was scheduled for a Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. The same Thursday Michael had told me he had a late lunch with a client. The same Thursday he had come home smelling like perfume I had pretended not to notice. I folded the email and put it back in my purse. I needed to see the condo. I needed to know if it was real. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I finished my coffee and grabbed my keys. The drive to Maple Street took 20 minutes, just like the email said. I parked across the street and sat in the car for a long moment. The building was newish, brick and glass, with a small lobby visible through the front door. I could see a potted plant and a bench and a woman sitting behind a desk. The woman was reading a book. I got out of the car and crossed the street. I pushed open the lobby door and walked up to the desk. The woman looked up. She was young, maybe 25, with a name tag that said Natalie. Hi, I said. I'm here to view Unit 4B. She blinked. I don't have a showing scheduled for today. Oh, I said. I must have the wrong day. My husband was supposed to set it up. Michael. He mentioned he'd already been here once. Her face shifted. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Recognition. Right, she said. Michael. Let me check. She turned to her computer and typed something. She didn't need to check. She already knew. I could see it in the way her shoulders tightened, and she kept her eyes on the screen. Looks like he did view it last week, she said. Would you like to see it now? I can show you. Please, I said. She grabbed a key off a hook and gestured toward the elevator. I followed her. The elevator was clean and quiet, the kind of quiet that felt expensive. We rode up to the 4th floor in silence. She unlocked the door to Unit 4B and stepped aside to let me enter. The condo was small but polished. Open layout. New appliances. A balcony overlooking the street. The windows let in a lot of light. I walked through the living room and into the bedroom. The bedroom had a closet and a window and enough space for a queen bed. I stood in the middle of the room and tried to imagine Michael here. I tried to imagine him brushing his teeth in the bathroom I was about to walk into. I tried to imagine him lying in this bed with someone else. It wasn't hard to imagine. That was the worst part. Natalie was standing in the doorway, watching me. She had her arms crossed and her expression was carefully neutral. How much is it? I asked. She named a number. A number that was not small. A number that would have required a down payment that came from somewhere. A number that Michael could not have pulled together from his salary alone. Has anyone made an offer? I asked. She hesitated. There's a pending offer, actually. From Michael. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I walked back to the living room and looked out the balcony window. I could see the street below and the cars moving past and a woman pushing a stroller. The sun was bright. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like it was happening to someone else. Thank you, I said. I've seen enough. Natalie nodded and led me back to the elevator. She didn't say anything else. When we got to the lobby, I thanked her again and walked out into the light. I stood on the sidewalk for a minute and breathed. The air was warm and smelled like exhaust and cut grass. I thought about the $4,000. I thought about the rent payments. I thought about the condo and the down payment and the life Michael had been building without me. I drove home with the windows down. The radio was playing something from the 80s, a song I used to love. I didn't turn it off. I let it play, and I let myself think about all the things I had not seen. All the things I had chosen not to see. When I got back to the house, Michael's car was in the driveway. He was in the backyard, mowing the lawn. I watched him through the kitchen window. He was wearing an old t-shirt and shorts, and he was pushing the mower back and forth like he had nothing on his mind but grass. I watched him, and I tried to remember the last time I had looked at him and felt something soft. It had been a long time. Longer than I wanted to admit. I went inside and put my purse on the counter. I pulled out the email and the screenshots and the scrap of paper with the routing number. I laid them out on the table like evidence. They were evidence. That was what this was. I was collecting evidence against my own husband. I thought about calling someone. My sister. A friend. My daughter. But I didn't know what I would say. Hey, I think your father is buying a condo with another woman and he's been siphoning our savings for almost a year. That wasn't a conversation you had over the phone. That wasn't a conversation you had at all, unless you were ready to change everything. Michael came in through the back door. He was sweaty and grinning. Lawn looks good, he said. I might do the edging later. I made tea, I said. He looked at me. You okay? You look pale. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. You said that yesterday. I poured myself a glass of water. I'm just tired, I repeated. I didn't look at him. I couldn't look at him. I was afraid I would start laughing or screaming or throwing things, and none of those were the right move. He walked over to the table and looked at the papers I had left out. I had left them out on purpose. I wanted to see what he would do. He glanced at them, then looked away. They didn't register. He didn't see them. He didn't see them at all. I'm going to take a shower, he said. Then maybe we can get dinner somewhere. I don't feel like going out. Delivery then. Whatever you want. Fine. He headed toward the bathroom, and I watched him go. I waited until I heard the water running, and then I walked to his laptop, which was sitting on the couch where he had left it. It was unlocked. It was always unlocked. He had never been careful. That was the thing that stung the most. He had never been careful because he had never expected me to look. I opened his email again. I searched for condo. The confirmation email was there. I searched for Maple. Nothing else. I searched for attorney. Nothing. I searched for Rachel. Her name came up in an old thread, one he had not deleted, about a work event from a year ago. The first email was to a group. The second was a reply only to her. Asterisk, thanks for the laugh. You made my day. Asterisk, the third was a reply from her. Asterisk, anytime, Michael. You know where to find me. Asterisk, I read the thread 3 times. I read it until the words lost their meaning and became just shapes on a screen. Then I closed the laptop and went to the bedroom. Michael was still in the shower. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. I needed a plan. I needed more than screenshots and receipts and a condo I had just walked through. I needed to know how much he had taken. I needed to know how much I had left. I needed to know what I was fighting for. I called the credit union. I used the routing number from the scrap of paper. I told the woman on the phone that I was his wife and I needed to confirm the balance on the account. She asked for the account number. I didn't have it. She said she couldn't help me. I thanked her and hung up. But I had her voice in my head. I had the shape of the number. I had the dates. I had enough. I went back to the living room and sat at the table. Michael came out of the shower in his robe, his hair wet. He sat down across from me and asked what I wanted for dinner. I told him to surprise me. He opened his phone and started scrolling through delivery options. His thumb moved over the screen like nothing was wrong. Like everything was exactly as it should be. I watched him and I thought about the woman in the coffee shop. Rachel. I thought about the latte she had thrown in his face. I thought about the filming commuters and the way she had walked out with her head high. I thought about paying for her coffee. I thought about what it meant to be on the other side of that. I thought about what it would feel like to walk out that door and not come back. You know what I said? I'm not hungry. I think I'll go to bed early. He looked up, his face confused again. Elena, it's 6 o'clock. I know. I'm just tired. He said, you've been tired a lot lately. I said, maybe I have. He looked at me for a long moment. I looked back. Neither of us said what we were thinking. I didn't know what he was thinking. I didn't know if I had ever known. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I closed the door behind me. I didn't lock it this time. I didn't need to. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling again. Michael came in an hour later and slipped under the covers. He reached for my hand in the dark. I let him hold it. I let him think that was enough. I thought about the condo. I thought about the rent payments. I thought about the woman who had been in my book club and the man who had been my husband and the life I had built on a foundation I never checked. I thought about what I would do tomorrow. I thought about the phone call I needed to make. I thought about the attorney I had never needed before. I thought about the hair on his jacket and the receipt in his car and the email I had printed and the coffee shop and the corner table and the way he had leaned in like she was the only person in the world. The water in the shower was already cold. I stood under it for a full minute before I realized I hadn't even turned on the hot. That was how numb I was. That was how far gone. I called the attorney on Monday morning. I did it from the library in my office, with the door closed and my coffee growing cold on the desk. I had looked up family law firms the night before, scrolling through reviews and websites until my eyes blurred. I picked a woman named Margaret Hastings. Her firm was small, not flashy. Her photo showed a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and glasses and a smile that looked like it meant business. The receptionist put me through. I told Margaret I needed to consult about a separation. She asked a few questions. How long married, children, assets? I answered them in a flat voice that surprised me. She asked if I had any documentation. I told her I had screenshots and bank statements and a real estate email. She said she could see me the next day. I hung up and sat still for a long moment. The library was quiet. I could hear the hum of the heating system and the distant shuffle of someone shelving books. I had worked here for 3 years. It was the first job I had taken after our daughter left for school, the first thing I had done for myself in a long time. I liked the smell of old paper and the way the light came through the high windows in the afternoons. I liked the silence. I had never liked the silence before, not like this. That evening, Michael came home at 7. He kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I told him I had sorted through a collection of property deeds from the 1940s. He asked if it was interesting. I said it was. He nodded and went to change out of his work clothes. I watched him go and thought about the property deed I had found that morning, the one for the house we were living in, the one with both our names on it. I thought about what it would mean to sell it. I thought about what it would mean to stay. On Tuesday, I drove to Margaret Hastings's office. It was in an old building downtown, above a bakery. The smell of bread followed me up the stairs. Her office was neat, efficient, with a desk and 2 chairs and a window that overlooked the street. She shook my hand and asked me to sit. I laid out the screenshots and the bank statements and the printed email. I told her about the coffee shop and the blonde hair and the condo on Maple Street. I told her about the rent payments and the account number I couldn't access. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Has he confronted you? She asked. No. Have you confronted him? No. Good. She pulled out a notepad and started writing. She asked for the dates and amounts of the transfers. She asked if I had copies of our tax returns. I told her I could get them. She asked if I had any access to his separate accounts. I told her about his laptop. She told me to take photos of everything, not just screenshots. Photos with a timestamp. He's been moving money for close to a year, she said. That's significant. If we can prove he used marital assets to fund this, the condo, the payments, whatever else, that's an issue he'll have to answer for. Can you do that? I asked. With the documentation you've already gathered, yes. But I'll need more. I'll need a full financial accounting. I'll need you to authorize a forensic audit. How much will that cost? She named a number. It was not small. But it was less than what Michael had already taken. I'll do it, I said. She nodded. I'll also need you to start keeping a record of everything. Texts, emails, his comings and goings. Dates and times. Anything he tells you that doesn't line up. Like a journal, I said. Like a journal, she agreed. But it's not for reflection. It's for evidence. I walked out of her office with a folder full of paperwork and a knot in my stomach. The bakery below was closing. The woman at the counter was wiping down the display case. I stood on the sidewalk and watched her through the window. She was humming something. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the movement of her mouth. She looked content. She looked like she had no idea what was happening in the office above her. I drove home on autopilot. I passed the coffee shop. I didn't slow down. I passed Maple Street. I didn't turn. I went home and put the folder in my nightstand drawer, under a stack of sweaters. Michael wasn't home. He had texted me an hour before, saying he had a late meeting. I didn't ask with who. That night, I started the journal. Not a paper journal. A note on my phone, password protected. I wrote down the date and the time and what Michael had told me about the meeting. I wrote down that he had left at 7 and texted at 9 to say he was on his way home. I wrote down that he had smelled like cigarettes when he walked in, which was strange because he didn't smoke. I wrote down everything. I wrote down my own movements too. The times I went to the store. The calls I made. The things I thought about when I couldn't sleep. It was strange to see it all written out. It made it more real. It made it harder to pretend. On Wednesday, I found the lease agreement. It was in the back of his desk drawer, under a stack of old warranties and manuals. I had been looking for a pair of scissors and I found it instead. It was for a storage unit. The unit was on the other side of town, near the highway. The lease had been signed 4 months ago. I took a photo of the lease agreement with my phone and put it back exactly where I had found it. I found the scissors and went back to the kitchen. I stood at the counter and stared at nothing. A storage unit. Another expense. Another thing he had hidden. I wondered what was in it. I wondered if it was furniture for the condo. I wondered if it was something worse. I didn't have to wonder long. I drove to the storage facility that afternoon. It was one of those places with a gate and a code and rows of identical metal doors. I told the woman at the front desk I was Michael's wife and I had forgotten the code. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she gave it to me. She didn't ask for ID. She didn't ask for anything. I drove to the unit and unlocked the padlock with the combination Michael had used for everything, the same one I had known for 18 years. The door rolled up and I stood there in the dim light, staring. It was the condo. The whole condo. Furniture and boxes and a lamp I recognized from a store we had walked past years ago. There was a couch and a coffee table and a bed frame still in its packaging. There were kitchen supplies and towels and a set of sheets. There was a framed picture of a woman and a dog. The dog was a golden retriever. The woman was not me. I stood there in the storage unit and I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not call him. I just looked at the photo for a long time and then I put it back where I had found it. I locked the unit and drove home and did not tell anyone where I had been. That night, Michael asked me about dinner, and I said I wasn't hungry. He said he was worried about me. I said I was fine. He said I wasn't fine. I said I was just tired. He said, "You're always tired lately." I know, I said. I'm dealing with some things. Like what? Like I need to make some decisions, I said. About work. About what I want. He nodded slowly. I could see him relax. He thought I was talking about my job. He thought I was talking about something small. He was right. I was talking about my job. I was talking about the job I had been doing for 18 years. The job of being his wife. I was about to resign. On Thursday, I went back to Margaret's office. I showed her the photos from the storage unit and the lease agreement and the code I had been given. She looked at each one carefully and made notes. She asked if I had found anything else. The condo, I said. The down payment. That's where the money went. Can you prove that? I can prove the transfers. I can prove the lease. I can prove the email about the viewing. It's enough, she said. We can file a motion for financial disclosure. That will force him to account for everything. Will he know I'm doing it? He'll know when he's served. That's the point. I sat back in my chair. I had known this was coming. I had known it since the coffee shop. But hearing it out loud was something else entirely. How long do I have? I asked. Until you're ready, she said. We can file today. Or we can wait. It's your timeline. I said I needed time. I said I would let her know. That night, I did something I had not done in years. I called my daughter. She was in her dorm room, studying. Her voice was bright and tired, and she asked how I was doing. I told her I was doing fine. I asked about her classes and her friends and whether she was eating enough. She laughed and said I sounded like a mom. I said I was a mom. Mom, she said. Are you sure you're okay? I'm sure, I said. I'm just making some changes. What kind of changes? The good kind, I said. The kind I should have made a long time ago. She didn't push. She never pushed. She had always been like that, easygoing, trusting. I had raised her to be that way. I had thought it was a good thing. Now I wasn't so sure. We talked for 20 minutes. She told me about a professor she didn't like and a boy she was interested in and a paper she had to write. I listened and I gave advice, and I didn't tell her about the coffee shop or the storage unit or the condo on Maple Street. I didn't tell her about the lease or the blonde hair or the $4,000. I didn't tell her about the attorney or the journal or the knot in my stomach that had not gone away for days. I told her I loved her. She said she loved me too. We hung up and I sat on the couch in the dark and I thought about what it would mean to tell her the truth. I thought about what it would mean to wait. I thought about the date I had circled on the calendar in my head. The date I would be ready. Michael came home at 11. He was drunk. Not stumbling drunk, but loose, cheerful, the kind of drunk that came from a good dinner and a bottle of wine. He kissed my forehead and said he was sorry he was late. It was a long meeting, he said. I'm sure it was, I said. He went to bed. I stayed on the couch. I opened my phone and looked at the journal. I added an entry for the night. Asterisk, he came home at 11. He said he was at a meeting. I did not ask where. He smelled like perfume. I did not ask about that either. Asterisk, I typed the words and saved them and sat in the dark. I thought about Rachel. I wondered if she knew he was drunk. I wondered if she had been the one pouring the wine. I wondered if she had looked at him the way I used to look at him, like he was the only person in the room. I thought about the latte she had thrown in his face. I thought about the way she had walked out. I thought about the filming commuters and the way they had all turned to watch. I thought about paying for her coffee and what it had meant. I still wasn't sure. But I was starting to get an idea. She had walked out with nothing. No explanation. No apology. She had just left. She had left him there, drenched and embarrassed, and she had not looked back. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be the one who walked out. I wanted to be the one who didn't look back. I looked at my phone. The journal. The screenshots. The photos from the storage unit. I had everything I needed. Everything except the nerve. I typed one more line. Enough is enough. I saved it and closed the phone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling and listened to the house settle around me. The floorboards creaked. The heater hummed. The refrigerator kicked on and off. All the sounds I had known for years, The sounds of a life I thought I understood. I thought about the roof. The one he had told me we couldn't afford to fix. The one he had said would have to wait until next year. I thought about the down payment on the condo and the payments to the credit union and the storage unit full of furniture for a life he was building without me. I thought about what it would feel like to take all of it and lay it out in front of him. To say, I know. I know everything. I know about the condo and the storage unit and the credit union and the lease. I know about the transfers and the receipts and the blonde hair and the woman from my book club. I know about the meetings that were not meetings and the dinners that were not dinners and the phone calls that were not phone calls. I know. I thought about the look on his face when I said it. I thought about what he would do. I thought about what I would do after. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the way he had leaned in like she was the only person in the world. He looked up then, scanning the room, and I was already walking toward the door. I got the call from Margaret on Friday morning. She had filed the motion for financial disclosure. Michael would be served within a week. I sat at my desk in the library and listened to her explain the timeline and the next steps. She told me I should be prepared for him to react. She told me I should think about where I would stay. I have a house, I said. You have a house with both your names on it, she said. That doesn't mean you'll want to be in it once this starts. I didn't answer. I knew she was right. I just didn't want to admit it. That afternoon, I found the second email. It was in the trash folder on his laptop. He had cleared it, but he hadn't emptied the trash. I had learned that trick from a librarian who handled digital archives. Nothing was ever really gone. The email was from a real estate agent. The subject line was closing. The body was short. A congratulations. A confirmation of the date. A request for the final payment. I scrolled down. The closing date was in 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today. 3 weeks from the day I was sitting in the library, staring at a screen, watching my husband buy a condo with money I had earned. The apartment was listed at a number I recognized. It was the number I had seen on the statement. It was the number he had been siphoning for months. It was the number that added up to a life I had been paying for without knowing. I printed the email. I put it in the folder with the others. I took a photo of it with my phone and sent it to Margaret. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of my office. I thought about the closing date. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to decide what I was going to do. 3 weeks to tell him I knew. 3 weeks to get out before he could move her in. I walked to the window and looked out at the campus. Students were walking across the quad, backpacks and headphones, and the easy stride of people who still believed the world was something they could shape. I had believed that once. I had believed it about my marriage. I had believed it about my husband. I went home early that day. Michael was not home. He was not supposed to be home. He had texted me at lunch to say he had a client dinner. I had replied with a thumbs up emoji. I had been too polite even then. I made myself dinner. A salad. A glass of wine. I sat at the table and ate alone and thought about the woman who would be eating in the condo on Maple Street. I thought about her hair and her laugh and the way she had walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. She had done me a favor that day. She had shown me what he was. I just hadn't been ready to see it. The phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Michael. Hey, he said. I'm going to be late. How late? Maybe another hour. The client is being difficult. The client, I said. Yeah. You know how it is. I did know how it was. I knew exactly how it was. I had been knowing it for months. I had been ignoring it for months. I had been making excuses for it for months. Michael, I said. Yeah, when are you coming home? An hour. Maybe 2. I'll text you. Okay. I hung up. I finished my wine. I poured another glass. I sat in the dark and watched the clock on the stove. The minutes ticked by. The house was quiet. The house was always quiet. I thought about the journal. I opened my phone and read the entries I had written. The dates and times. The things he had said. The things I had let him say. I had been writing this story for months. I had been writing it without knowing. I typed a new entry. Asterisk, he called. He said he'd be late. The client was being difficult. I didn't ask which client. I didn't ask which dinner. I didn't ask who he was with. I didn't ask anything at all. Asterisk, I saved it and put the phone down. I sat in the dark and I waited. He came home at midnight. His tie was loose. His shirt was untucked. He smelled like perfume and alcohol and something sweet I didn't recognize. He leaned down to kiss my forehead, and I leaned back. Long night, he said. I bet. I'm going to bed. Okay. He walked toward the bedroom. I watched him go. I watched the way his shoulders slumped and his steps dragged. He was tired. He had been doing this for so long that he was tired from it. He was tired from lying. I didn't move from the couch. I sat in the dark for a long time. I thought about the closing date. I thought about the condo. I thought about the storage unit. I thought about the woman who would move into that condo, and I thought about the woman who had thrown a latte in his face. I thought about the difference between them. Then I got up and went to the bedroom. He was asleep. I stood in the doorway and watched him breathe. His mouth was open. His face was slack. He looked old. He looked older than I remembered. I walked to the closet and pulled out the folder. I opened it on the bed and looked at the papers. The emails. The receipts. The lease agreement. The photos from the storage unit. All of it. Everything I had collected. Everything I had done to prove that what I had seen was real. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I looked at him and I thought about what I was going to say. I had been preparing for it for days. I had rehearsed it in my head 100 times. But now that he was here, sleeping, vulnerable, I couldn't find the words. I didn't need the words. I needed the action. I needed to do something. I opened my phone and called Margaret. It was past midnight. I didn't care. I'm ready, I said. She was silent for a moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. Okay, she said. I'll file the separation papers on Monday. I'll have him served by Wednesday. Thank you. Do you have a place to stay? I'll figure it out. You can stay at my office if you need to. I have a couch. Thank you, I said again. But I'll figure it out. I hung up and sat on the bed. The room was dark. Michael was still asleep. I looked at the papers on the bed, and I looked at the phone in my hand, and I thought about the coffee shop and the corner table and the way he had leaned in like she was the only person in the world. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. I poured myself a glass of water. I stood at the counter and drank it and looked out the window at the street. There was no one there. It was just me and the dark and the sound of my own breathing. I thought about the woman who had walked out of the coffee shop. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about the latte on the floor. I thought about the look on his face when the woman read the email. I thought about the look on his face when he realized what she had seen. I thought about what it would be like to do that to him. To hand him something he couldn't explain. To walk away and not look back. I finished my water. I put the glass in the sink. I walked back to the bedroom and stood in the doorway and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful. He looked like a man who had no idea what was coming. On Sunday, I packed a bag. I didn't pack much. Just clothes. A few books. The folder with all the evidence. I put the bag in the trunk of my car and I waited. Michael was in the backyard, weeding the flower beds. He had been doing things like that all weekend. Little tasks. Little ways of pretending everything was normal. I stood in the kitchen and watched him through the window. He was on his knees, pulling weeds. The sun was on his back. He looked content. He looked like a man who had nothing to hide. I opened the door and walked out to the yard. He looked up at me and smiled. Almost done, he said. Michael, I said. Yeah, I need to talk to you. He stood up. He brushed off his hands. What's up? Let's go inside. He looked at me. He saw something in my face. I don't know what he saw. But he stopped smiling. Okay, he said. We went inside. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table. The same chairs. The same light coming through the same window. I looked at him and I opened my mouth. The words came out. I had practiced them 100 times. I had practiced them in the dark and the light and the silence and the noise. I knew exactly what I was going to say. Michael, I said. I know about the condo. He froze. I saw it happen. I saw the confusion and then the recognition and then the panic. It was beautiful. It was exactly what I had wanted to see. Elena, I know about the storage unit. I know about the credit union. I know about the rent payments. I know about Rachel. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. No words came out. He looked like a fish. He looked like a man who had been caught and didn't know how to swim. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally said. Sure you don't. Elena, this is don't, I said. Don't lie to me. You've been lying to me for months. Maybe years. I don't even know anymore. He looked at me. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He had never looked like that before. I had never seen him afraid. I can explain, he said. I'm sure you can. But I don't want to hear it. Elena, please. I don't want to hear it, I repeated. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to hear your reasons. I don't want to hear anything you have to say. He sat back in his chair. He looked at the table. He looked at me. He looked like a man who had just realized he had made a mistake. Not the mistake of cheating. The mistake of getting caught. What are you going to do? He asked. I'm going to file for separation, I said. I'm going to take half of everything. And I'm going to tell the court about the condo and the storage unit and the money you hid from me. He stared at me. You can't do that. I already have, I said. I stood up. I walked to the door. He called out my name and I didn't stop. I opened the door and I walked out. I didn't look back. I walked to the car and I got in and I drove away. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't staying. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the woman who had thrown the latte. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about paying for her coffee. I thought about what it meant to be free. I was just starting to understand. He looked up then, scanning the room, and I was already walking toward the door. I ended up at my sister's house. She lives 40 minutes away, in a town that's smaller and quieter than ours. I pulled into her driveway at 7 in the evening and sat in the car for a long moment before I got out. The lights were on in the kitchen. I could see her moving around, probably making dinner. She was always making dinner. It was one of the things I envied about her. She cooked. She ate. She never seemed to lose her appetite. She opened the door before I could knock. She had seen me pull in. That was Claire. She noticed everything. Elena, she said. What happened? I walked past her into the house. I dropped my bag on the floor. I sat down at her kitchen table and I told her everything. The coffee shop. The texts. The blonde hair. The condo. The storage unit. The attorney. I told her about the email and the closing date and the money he had been moving. I told her about the woman from my book club and the account I couldn't access and the journal I had been keeping. She listened without interrupting. She poured me a glass of wine. She sat across from me and she listened. Are you okay? She asked when I was done. I don't know, I said. I think I am. I think I will be. Good, she said. Because you're staying here. For as long as you need. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing, she said. You're my sister. And he's an asshole. I laughed. I didn't think I could laugh. But I did. It was a short, surprised sound, like something had cracked open inside me. An asshole, I repeated. An asshole, she said firmly. And you're going to be fine. I stayed with Claire for the next 2 days. She had a guest room with a bed and a window that faced the backyard. The backyard had a garden with tomatoes and peppers and flowers I didn't know the names of. I looked out the window and I watched the birds and I thought about nothing. Michael called. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. I didn't listen. He sent texts. I deleted them without reading. I knew what they said. I knew the script. The apologies. The promises. The excuses. He had been writing that script for months. I didn't need to hear it again. On Tuesday, I went to the library. I told my supervisor I was dealing with a personal issue. She said to take all the time I needed. I sat in my office and stared at the wall and thought about the closing date. It was in 2 weeks. 2 weeks until he was supposed to sign the papers for the condo. 2 weeks until he would be legally obligated to someone else. I pulled out my phone and called Margaret. Can you expedite the separation papers? I asked. I can file an emergency motion, she said. It'll be faster. It'll also be more expensive. Do it. Are you sure? I'm sure. She said she would have it filed by the end of the day. She said he would be served within 48 hours. I hung up and sat in the silence of my office. I felt calm. I felt like I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I had been waiting for it since the coffee shop. I just hadn't known it. That evening, I went back to Claire's. She had made pasta. We ate together at her kitchen table and talked about nothing. Her kids were at the table too, a boy and a girl, both in high school. They asked about their Uncle Michael. Claire said he was fine. She said he was busy with work. She said it with a straight face, and I loved her for it. After dinner, I went to the guest room and closed the door. I sat on the bed and opened my phone. I looked at the journal. The entries I had written. The dates and times. The things I had been keeping track of for days. I wrote a new entry. Asterisk, I told Michael I knew. I told him I was filing. I left. I'm at Claire's. I feel like I'm in someone else's life. I feel like I'm watching it from a distance. But I don't feel sad. I don't feel anything. Is that wrong? Asterisk, I saved it and put the phone down. I sat in the dark and listened to the sounds of the house. Claire was doing the dishes. Her kids were watching TV. It was normal. It was the kind of normal I had thought I had. On Wednesday, I got a call from Michael. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I listened to it this time. I needed to hear what he had to say. Elena, he said. I've been trying to reach you. I need to talk to you. Please. Just give me a chance to explain. This isn't what you think. I know it looks bad, but it's not what you think. Please. Just call me back. I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. It was exactly what I thought. It was worse than what I thought. I didn't need to hear him explain. I didn't need to hear him apologize. I didn't need to hear anything he had to say. I called Margaret. He's been served this morning, she said. He's probably panicking. Good. Are you ready for the next step? What's the next step? He'll want to negotiate. He'll want to talk. You need to decide what you want. What I want, I said. Yes. What you want. I thought about it. I thought about the house and the condo and the storage unit. I thought about the money and the years and the lies. I thought about the woman from the book club and the blonde hair and the coffee shop. I thought about the latte and the filming commuters and the way she had walked out. I want the house, I said. I want half of everything. And I want him to know that I know exactly what he did. That's a good start, she said. We can work from there. I hung up and sat in the dark. I thought about what I had just said. I wanted the house. I wanted the house I had painted and planted and loved. I wanted the house I had made into a home. I wanted it without him in it. On Thursday, I went back to the house. I needed to get some more things. I had left so much behind. Michael wasn't there. He had probably been served by now. He was probably somewhere else, trying to figure out how to fix what he had broken. I walked through the house and looked at the rooms. The living room with the blue walls. The kitchen with the table we had sat at for 18 years. The bedroom with the bed we had shared. The closet where his clothes still hung. The bathroom where I had found the blonde hair. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Clothes. Shoes. The photo of our daughter on her graduation day. The quilt my grandmother had made. The things that mattered. The things that were mine. I was almost done when I heard the front door open. I froze. I heard footsteps in the hallway. I heard my name. Elena, it was Michael. I walked out of the bedroom. He was standing in the hallway. He looked terrible. His eyes were red. His shirt was untucked. He had not shaved. He looked like he had not slept in days. Elena, he said again. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I don't have 5 minutes. Please. I looked at him. He was begging. He had never begged before. He had never asked me for anything except to be patient, to be kind, to be understanding. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in the living room. On the couch. The same couch we had bought together. The same couch where we had watched movies and argued about politics and fallen asleep on each other. Elena, he said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, just give me a chance to fix this. How? I asked. How are you going to fix this? I'll end it. I'll end it with her. I'll sell the condo. I'll put the money back. I'll do whatever you want. Just please, don't do this. I looked at him. He was crying. He was actually crying. I had not seen him cry in years. Michael, I said. I don't want you to fix this. What do you mean, I don't want you to fix it? I don't want you to end it. I don't want you to sell the condo. I don't want you to do anything. I don't understand. I know, I said. That's the problem. You don't understand. You don't understand that I don't want to be with someone who had to be caught. I don't want to be with someone who hid money from me. I don't want to be with someone who told me we couldn't afford a roof while he was buying a condo for another woman. He opened his mouth. No words came out. I don't want your apology, I said. I don't want your promises. I don't want your excuses. I just want you to sign the papers. Elena, please, I'm done, I said. I'm done being patient. I'm done being understanding. I'm done being the one who holds everything together while you take everything apart. He sat back on the couch. He looked at the floor. He looked at his hands. He looked like a man who had lost something he didn't know he had. I loved you, he said. Then you should have acted like it. He didn't say anything. He didn't have anything to say. I had given him 5 minutes. I had given him more than he deserved. I stood up. I walked to the door. I picked up the suitcase. I didn't look back. Elena, he said. I stopped. I didn't turn around. I'm sorry, he said. I opened the door. I walked out. I closed it behind me. I stood on the front steps and I breathed. The air was cold. The sky was gray. The street was quiet. I walked to my car and put the suitcase in the trunk and I drove away. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the woman who had thrown the latte. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about the way she had walked out. I thought about the way I had just walked out. I thought about the look on his face when he realized I wasn't coming back. I drove back to Claire's. I parked in the driveway. I sat in the car and I watched the light in the kitchen window. Claire was there. She was making dinner. She was always making dinner. I got out of the car. I walked to the door. I opened it. I walked inside. I looked at Claire. She looked at me. She didn't ask. She just handed me a glass of wine. Screw this, I said. Good, she said. Enough is enough. He looked up then, scanning the room, and I was already walking toward the door. The week that followed was a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Margaret had filed the separation papers and Michael had been served. He had hired an attorney, a man named Robert who specialized in mediation. I had not met him. I didn't need to. I had Margaret. I had the evidence. I had the upper hand. Michael's attorney called mine to propose a meeting. Margaret called me to ask if I wanted to attend. I said yes. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to see what he looked like when he was cornered. We met in Margaret's office. The same office above the bakery. The same smell of bread drifting up through the floorboards. I sat in the same chair I had sat in a week before. Across from me was Michael, sitting in a chair next to his attorney. He looked smaller than I remembered. He looked smaller and older and tired. Elena, he said. Michael. Let's get started, Margaret said. She spread out the documents on the desk. The financial disclosures. The bank statements. The lease agreements. The photos of the storage unit. The email from the real estate agent. The screenshots of the credit card transfers. All of it. All of the evidence I had gathered. Michael, his attorney said. I recommend you be forthright here. I know, Michael said. He looked at me. I know what I did. I'm not going to deny it. Good, Margaret said. Then we can start with the finances. The transfers to the credit union. The down payment on the condo. The storage unit. The lease agreements. All of these were funded from joint assets. My client is entitled to half. Michael nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just nodded. I've already transferred the money back to the joint account, he said. All of it. Including the down payment. That's a start, Margaret said. But we're not done. There are also the legal fees, the filing fees, and the costs of the forensic audit. I'll pay them, Michael said. Whatever you need. I'll pay it all. I looked at him. He was trying so hard. He was doing everything he could to make it right. But it was too late. It had been too late the moment I saw him at the coffee shop. Elena, he said. Can we talk privately just for a minute? I looked at Margaret. She nodded. 5 minutes, I said. We walked out into the hallway. The building was quiet. The bakery was closed. The stairs creaked under our feet. We stood at the window at the end of the hall and looked out at the street. Elena, he said. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Not once. That's not true, I said. It is true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me. You wouldn't have hidden money from me. You wouldn't have bought a condo for another woman. It wasn't for her. Not really. It was for me. I was trying to. I don't know. I was trying to feel something. I was trying to feel like I wasn't just old. Old, I repeated. I know how it sounds. But I was scared. I was scared of getting older. I was scared of being invisible. I was scared that I had missed something. And I was the collateral damage. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said. You did hurt me. And you didn't stop. You didn't stop doing it for months. You just kept going. You kept lying. You kept hiding. You never thought about what it would do to me. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. He looked like he was about to cry. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want your apology. What do you want? I want you to understand, I said. I want you to understand what you did. I want you to understand that I'm not going to be the one who holds this together. I'm done holding things together. I'm done being the one who makes everything okay. Elena, I'm going to file for divorce, I said. I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to give you another chance. I'm not going to be the woman who waits for you to change. I'm not going to be the woman who is patient while you figure out how to be a husband. I've been that woman for 18 years. I'm done. He stared at me. He opened his mouth. No words came out. I'm taking the house, I said. I'm taking half of everything. I'm going to keep my job and my car and my life. You're going to sign the papers and you're going to leave. And I'm going to be fine. Elena, please don't, I said. Don't beg. It's not a good look on you. I turned and walked back to the office. I sat down in the chair. I looked at Margaret. I looked at his attorney. Let's finish this, I said. We finished the meeting in an hour. Michael signed the papers. He agreed to the financial settlement. He agreed to the house. He agreed to everything. He didn't fight. He didn't argue. He just signed. I walked out of the building and into the sunlight. I stood on the sidewalk and I breathed. The bakery was closed. The street was quiet. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the latte. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about Rachel. I wondered where she was. I wondered if she knew what had happened. I wondered if she had thrown that latte because she had finally figured out what he was. I walked to my car. I got in. I drove away. The next few days were a blur of packing and sorting. Michael had moved out. He was staying in a hotel downtown. He had taken his clothes and his books and his golf clubs. He had left everything else. The house was mine. I walked through the rooms. The living room with the blue walls. The kitchen with the table. The bedroom with the bed we had shared. The closet where his clothes had hung. The bathroom where I had found the hair. I walked through each room and I thought about the life I had built here. The life I had thought I had. The life I was leaving behind. On the last day, I stood in the middle of the living room. The house was quiet. The sun was setting. The light came through the window and made the walls look orange and gold. I stood there and I thought about everything that had happened. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the woman who had thrown the latte. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about paying for her coffee. I thought about Michael. I thought about the lies. I thought about the condo. I thought about the storage unit. I thought about the transfers. I thought about the blonde hair. I thought about the email from his boss. I thought about the moment I had handed the receipt to the barista. I thought about the moment the woman read it. I thought about the moment she threw the latte. I thought about the moment she walked out. I thought about what I had felt. I had felt nothing. I had felt empty. I had felt like I was watching a movie. A movie about someone else's life. But that wasn't true. It was my life. It had always been my life. I just hadn't been paying attention. I walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. I stood at the window and looked out at the yard. The yard was green. The flowers were blooming. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like it was supposed to look. I set down the glass. I pulled out my phone. I opened the journal. I read the entries I had written. The dates. The times. The things I had kept track of. I wrote a new entry. Asterisk, he's gone. The house is mine. I feel like I should be sad. I feel like I should be something. but I just feel calm. I feel like I've been holding my breath for 18 years, and I finally let it out. Asterisk, I saved it and put the phone down. I thought about what came next. I thought about the library. I thought about the boxes I still needed to sort. I thought about the living room I wanted to repaint. I thought about the garden I wanted to plant. I thought about the life I was going to build. I thought about my daughter. I had not told her everything. I had not told her about the condo or the money or the woman from my book club. I had not told her about the coffee shop or the latte or the filming commuters. I had told her that her father and I were separating. I had told her it was mutual. I had told her we both wanted what was best for her. She had called me the next day. She had asked if I was okay. I said I was. She had asked if I was sure. I said I was sure. She had said she loved me. I had said I loved her too. I sat down on the couch. The same couch we had bought together. The same couch where I had fallen asleep on him. The same couch where I had sat when I found out about the condo. I thought about Michael. I thought about the look on his face when I handed him the papers. I thought about the look on his face when he signed them. I thought about the look on his face when he walked out the door. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything. I just felt free. He looked up then, scanning the room, and I was already walking toward the door. The final meeting was at the house. I had asked him to come over. I had texted him 3 words, "We need to talk." He had replied within seconds, "I'll be there in an hour." I sat at the kitchen table and waited. The table was the same. The chairs were the same. The light through the window was the same. But everything felt different. I felt different. I had spent the week getting ready. I had packed up the rest of his things. Boxes of books. Boxes of clothes. Boxes of the things he had left behind. I had stacked them in the hallway by the front door. I wanted him to see them. I wanted him to know that there was nothing left for him here. He arrived at 7. I heard his car pull into the driveway. I heard the door open and close. I heard his footsteps in the hallway. He was wearing a suit. He was trying too hard. "Elena," he said. "Michael." He sat down across from me. He looked at the table. He looked at me. He looked like he had been practicing this moment in his head. I didn't care. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I wanted to see you," he said. "I've been thinking about you. About us. About everything." I didn't say anything. I let him talk. "I know I made mistakes," he said. "I know I hurt you. And I want to make it right. Whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." "Michael," I said. "You can't make it right. Elena, you can't undo what you did. You can't take back the months of lies. You can't make me forget what I saw. What I found. What I know." He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked down at his hands. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said. "I'm asking you to forgive. I don't have any forgiveness left." He looked at me. His eyes were wet. He looked like he was about to cry. "Elena, please, I'm not saying this to hurt you," I said. "I'm saying it because it's true. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your promises. I don't want your excuses. I just want you to understand that I'm done. Done with what? Done with us. Done with this marriage. Done with being the one who holds everything together. Done with being the one who waits. Done with being the one who believes." "Believes in what?" "Believes in you," I said. "I believed in you for 18 years. I believed in us. I believed that if I was patient enough, kind enough, good enough, you would stay. I believed that if I loved you enough, you would love me back. I believed that if I gave you enough, you would give me something in return." I stopped. I took a breath. I looked at him. "But that's not how it works," I said. "That's not how love works. You don't get to take and take and take and then expect the other person to keep giving. You don't get to lie and cheat and hide and then expect the other person to still be there when you finally decide to show up." "Elena, I was there," I said. "I was there for 18 years. I was there when you were sick. I was there when you lost your job. I was there when your father died. I was there when you needed someone to hold you together. I was always there." He was crying now. Tears were running down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "But I wasn't there," he said. "I wasn't there for you." "No," I said. "You weren't." He looked at me. His face was red. His eyes were swollen. He looked like a man who had finally realized what he had lost. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know you are," I said. But being sorry isn't enough. It's not enough to undo what you did. It's not enough to fix what you broke. It's not enough to make me stay. Elena, please. Just give me another chance. Just one more chance. I can change. I can be better. I can be the man you deserve. I don't want you to be better, I said. I don't want you to change. I don't want you to be the man I deserve. I want you to be gone. He looked at me. He looked like I had slapped him. I want you to understand, I said. I want you to understand what you did. Not so you can apologize. Not so you can make it right. Just so you know. Just so you can't pretend it didn't happen. I know what I did, he said. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you. I know I broke your trust. I know all of it. But you don't know what it felt like, I said. You don't know what it felt like to sit in that coffee shop and watch you hold another woman's hand. You don't know what it felt like to read your text and know that you were lying. You don't know what it felt like to find the receipts and the statements and the emails and realize that you had been doing this for months without me knowing. Elena, you don't know what it felt like to find that blonde hair on your jacket. You don't know what it felt like to walk through that condo and see the furniture you had bought for another woman. You don't know what it felt like to stand in that storage unit and see the life you were building without me. He looked at me. His tears had stopped. He was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I'm sorry, he said again. I know you are, I said. But being sorry isn't enough. It's never been enough. I stood up. I walked to the counter. I picked up the envelope that was waiting there. I walked back to the table and I set it down in front of him. What's this? He asked. The divorce papers, I said. I've already signed them. I need you to sign them too. He looked at the envelope. He didn't open it. He just stared at it like it was something he couldn't understand. Elena, he said. Please don't do this. Please. I have to, I said. I have to do this. Not because I want to hurt you. But because I need to be free. Free from what? Free from you, I said. Free from this marriage. Free from the lies. Free from the person I became when I was with you. What person? The person who was too patient, I said. The person who was too kind. The person who was too understanding. The person who put up with things she shouldn't have put up with. The person who stopped believing in herself. He looked at me. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know you felt that way. Of course you didn't, I said. You never asked. He looked at the envelope. He looked at me. He didn't say anything. He didn't have anything to say. Sign the papers, I said. And then leave. Take the boxes by the door. Take everything you still have here. And don't come back. Elena, I mean it, I said. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't text. Don't email. Don't show up at my work. Don't send messages through our daughter. Just leave. Let me go. He stared at me. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. Elena, he said. I loved you. I know you did, I said. But it wasn't enough. He didn't say anything. He reached for the envelope. He opened it. He read the papers. He signed them. He put the pen down. He stood up. He looked at me for a long moment. He didn't say anything. He didn't have anything to say. He walked to the door. He picked up the boxes in the hallway. He carried them to his car. He came back for the last one. He looked at me one more time. Goodbye, Elena, he said. Goodbye, Michael. He walked out the door. He closed it behind him. I stood in the kitchen and listened. I heard his car start. I heard it drive away. I heard the silence. The silence was loud. It was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I walked to the window. I looked out at the street. The street was empty. He was gone. I sat down at the kitchen table. The table where we had eaten 18 years of dinners. The table where we had argued and laughed and planned and dreamed. The table where I had told him I was leaving. I sat there for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I felt like I was breathing for the first time in years. I felt like I had been underwater and I had finally come up for air. I looked at the kitchen. The kitchen I had painted. The kitchen I had filled with the smell of coffee and bread and love. The kitchen where I had made breakfast for my family and lunch for my husband and dinner for my friends. The kitchen where I had spent so much of my life. I thought about the coffee shop. I thought about the corner table. I thought about the woman who had thrown the latte. I thought about the filming commuters. I thought about paying for her coffee. I thought about the moment I had asked the barista to take the email to his table. I thought about the moment she had read it. I thought about the moment she had thrown the latte. I thought about the moment she had walked out. I thought about what it meant to walk out. I thought about what it meant to leave something behind. I thought about what it meant to choose yourself. I stood up. I walked to the sink. I put my coffee mug in the sink. I looked out the window at the yard. The yard was green. The flowers were blooming. The sun was setting. I walked to the door. I opened it. I stepped outside. The air was cold and clean. I had forgotten what that felt like.